Hi and welcome. In this day and age of cinematic universes and studios trying to clamber over themselves to build the biggest and best that's going to be better than the MCU, I'm going to talk about a cinematic universe that's been around potentially since the 1980s. So stick around and find out which films are all loosely connected and potentially in their own universe. Right now, the biggest franchise out there in the cinema history is the MCU. The MCU was created with the first film Iron Man and was planned for meticulously by its creators. Disney then bought Marvel out and have carried on the franchise with relative success. DC have always been trying to play catch up with their own universe and haven't really got the finesse or the planning of the MCU. It always feels like whatever Marvel does, DC tries to do, but because they haven't planned for it or expected the success of Marvel, they always seem to fall flat on their face, with a few notable exceptions. Universal tried to come up with their own universe, and that was called the Darkverse, kicked off with The Mummy, which starred Tom Cruise. The Mummy failed abysmally because it didn't really capture the essence or the fun, at least, of the Brendan Fraser films, and at the moment that's in hiatus, and we're yet to see whether Universal are going to progress and take that franchise any further. In the meantime, we've got Godzilla taking on King Kong in what's going to be dubbed as a Monsterverse. So that's the most recent one coming to fruition, and Godzilla vs King Kong is going to be released later this year, all being well. However, this next series of films are all linked and could potentially be a cinematic universe set in the 1980s, and I'm not going to chat any longer. I'm going to delve right in with the first film. So sit back and enjoy, and please leave comments and everything else at the end of the video. And don't forget to join me on Facebook in the Facebook group Science Fiction Fans. Thank you very much and enjoy. So we begin with 1984's 16 Candles. Samantha Baker's Sweet 16 is anything but. Her high school crush doesn't know that she's alive. Her high school crush happens to be the most popular boy at school. Her parents have forgotten her birthday, and she is about to suffer every humiliation possible that you can suffer in the course of one day. But will things turn around for her? Will her high school crush actually realise that she's there? Her day is kind of hampered as well, because although she has a crush on the most popular guy, it's the geeks that also have a crush on her. So she has to fend off their affections throughout the day as well. So it's really not turning out to be a very good day. Her problems are compounded by the fact that it's also her older sister's wedding day. With the ceremony only hours away, her parents have actually forgotten that it is her birthday. So how does this film end up? Does she have a happy ever after? Well, I suggest you settle down with a bottle of wine and the missus and find out, if you're that way inclined. So yeah, it's not too bad a film, and as I say, if you haven't seen it before, it's probably the one that you should really sit down with the missus, unless you're into chick flicks. So we move to 1985's The Breakfast Club, which is about a group of kids that are held in detention. Beyond being in the same class at their high school, Claire Standish, Andrew Clark, John Brenda, Brian Johnson and Alison Reynolds don't really associate and have very little in common. With the exception of Claire and Andrew, who are a couple, they do not associate at all with anybody else in the school. In the simplest terms and in their own way of thinking, Claire is a princess and Andrew is an athlete. John is a criminal, Brian is a brain, and Alison's just classed as the basket case. But one thing that they do have in common is the 9-hour detention in the school library. They're there together on a Saturday morning, March the 24th, 1984, under the supervision of Mr. Vernon, but he's watching this detention from his office across the hall. Each one of the pupils is required to write a minimum 1,000-word essay during this 9 hours, and it's essentially about where and who they think they are in the world. At the beginning of these 9 hours, if they were indeed planning on writing the essay, they would write it given the context of how other people see them and the way that they've been brainwashed into what they've been believing about themselves. Naturally enough, being totally unsupervised, the kids don't sit down and write that essay. The film focuses on really the themes of discovering who you are and how you shouldn't really judge people just by appearance, because you never know what that person truly is underneath until you get to know them. So film number 3, and I will be telling you how they're all linked in together and what makes them a cinematic universe, is Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller is a wise guy who knows all the tricks of the trade, and today he's taken the day off school. But he's one of those that is always truant, and on this occasion though he's got the entire school and more believing that he's on the very edge of death. On this particular day off, Ferris invites his friend Cameron Fry and girlfriend Salome Peterson for his day of fun, while taking Cameron's father's precious Ferrari for transportation. All the while, the principal, Ed Rooney, is determined to prove Ferris is faking his illness, and Ferris's agitated sister Janine also has a goal to catch Ferris off guard. Ferris enjoys his day off with his friends until the mileage on the Ferrari reads in excess of a couple of thousand miles, and Cameron has to blow out. One of the funny scenes in this is when Ferris is actually convincing his mother that he's unwell by taking the thermometer out of his mouth and touching it against the bedside lamp. There are other funny little scenes in this film, and it's not actually a bad comedy, and I don't think it's dated particularly badly either. So, stick around, because the Sci-Fi one that links it and makes it relevant to the channel is coming up next, and then after that I will be revealing what the link is and why it is a cinematic universe. Potentially. Remember, this is just rumour. So here we are, film number 4 and the final in this cinematic universe. It stars Kelly LeBrook, Bill Paxton, Robert Downey Jr. and also Anthony Michael Hall. Any ideas what this film is yet? Congratulations, and give yourself a round of applause if you guessed that this film is Weird Science. Weird Science follows on the teenage kind of theme of all these films, as two unpopular teenagers, Gary Wallace and Wyatt Donnelly, they continuously try to get a girlfriend but fail. So in their desperations to be liked and boost up their morale within their peer group, they decide to create a virtual woman using a computer. Their living, breathing creation is a gorgeous woman, Lisa, whose purpose is to boost their confidence and basically make them a bit more likeable at school and increase their popularity. This film is actually quite funny. It might seem a little bit dated now, but then I think a lot of these 80s films potentially are. A few things that you may not know about this film is Bill Paxton actually got his head shaved and had a flat top without anybody knowing about it until he actually turned up on set. However, this just adds to his zany character as being a bit of an elder brother and a bully. This film is also linked in potentially to some of the other films such as Mad Max, given the fact that there's cameos later on in the film. I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it already, because I do recommend that you at least hire it out and give it one watch and leave a comment here and tell us if you liked it. So drum roll please. The reveal and the big secret that links all these films together is not only John Hughes, who wrote and directed them, but the high school that all the kids attend, Sherman High. If you look closely, you can see that they reused footage from each film, and it's basically repurposed, and for some reason John Hughes named the high school Sherman High in all 4 films. This could potentially be a cinematic universe, but remember, this is just my theory and nothing more than that. There's nothing apart from the fact that the high school's in all 4 films, and there is one character in 2 films where they make out that they have a fictitious girlfriend in Canada. So there are similarities there. Some of the cast do swap around, although they play different characters in each film. But there you go, a potential cinematic universe from 1980s. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Please subscribe.